All right, welcome into the Five Reasons Sports YouTube channel. I'm Brady Hawk, and today we have a very special guest, ESPN's Paul Biancardi. Paul, thank you for coming on.
Brady, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, of course. Well, we can get right into it. This is a very unique NBA season, but it's very unique for all the levels of basketball. I just wanted to get your opinion real quick on rookies coming in. They haven't played basketball, real basketball, in about 9 months. What is your opinion on what you think they can expect coming in? Is it going to take a little bit for them to get acquainted, or you think a lot of these guys are going to be able to just get in and pretty much go with it?
No, I think it's going to be a huge learning curve without the summer league and without time to really, get that game time. Now, they've worked on their bodies. They've worked on their skill. But it's one thing to work out, and it's another thing to actually practice against other players of your caliber. And then the next step is the playing time. So there'll be a huge learning curve. There has to be a lot of patience with the coaching staff, and the players have to have a great patience with themselves, knowing that the more practice time they get in, the more games they get in, things will get better. But I think at the beginning, we'll see some up and down play from the rookies.
For sure. I think we might see some guys, on the lower level of the first round, maybe taking some time to even get any minutes, like you mentioned. But to get into some guys on the Miami Heat's rookie, they drafted Precious Achiuwa. And it's a guy I think you're pretty familiar with, covering the high school level, a very good high school team of Montverde. A lot of games you've probably watched him play. I just want to get your opinion, kind of what are his strengths, do you think? What are some things that you've kind of stood out when you've watched him play, and how do you think he'll translate to the NBA level?
Well, the number one thing, when you mentioned Precious Achiuwa, and I've watched him since he was a junior in high school, I think about effort. And so that's the one part of the learning curve, Brady, that won't have to be a big adjustment. If you play hard and you play with great effort, you'll play that way all the time. And I think Precious Achiuwa, brings a good energy level and a good effort and a consistent energy level and effort to every game that he's played. His forte is rebounding the basketball and defending. Now, he wants to be a face-up shooter, like a lot of guys want to be, but I'm telling you this right now. He can run, he can rebound, and he can defend. And that's where he's made his mark in high school, and I thought that's where he made his mark at Memphis. And then with the absence of James Wiseman, his scoring came about. Obviously, he worked on his skills in practice and the offseason before Memphis, where I think now he can shoot an open shot, 15 to 17 feet, be comfortable with that short roll, pick and pop. But where he scores best in conversion, offensive glass, and he can get you a straight line drive. An incredible athlete and motor. I can see the fit at Miami.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of the things to describe him. It sounds like you're almost describing one of his teammates now, Bam Adebayo. That's a comparison that's come up a few times ever since he got drafted by Miami, that they're kind of looking to utilize him in a similar way. You mentioned the face-up game, defensive versatilities, things of that nature. How do you kind of see that comparison? Do you think it's a viable comparison?
It is in some ways. I watched Bam. I actually had a chance to see Bam once in 8th grade, and I saw him dunk on somebody in 8th grade. And, he's ferocious. He comes from a small town in North Carolina, and everything he did at an early age was based off explosiveness and effort, much like Precious Achiuwa. And then as you got to watch Bam play in games, he dominated the glass. He became a shot blocker, and he became a runner of the floor to finish baskets in transition. He loved to hit the offensive glass for second chance points. He really worked the glass hard. But then you saw flashes of footwork, and you saw flashes of him scoring the ball. It was all natural because he wasn't, taught these things at a young age where it became something of a go-to move or an idea of that he knew what he was doing. He really didn't know what he was doing when it came to scoring the ball at a young age. But I could see the flashes of offense based on the footwork and the soft touch. And that just continued to get better in high school. So I see the comparison. I think at the same stage, I think Bam has better footwork and probably a softer touch, but they're both terrific on the glass, high energy guys and shot blockers and team players.
Right, and coming in, even Bam Adebayo and even teammate Udonis Haslem have talked about that. Precious is a little bit ahead of him coming in out of college, so it's interesting to kind of see that comparison. But looking at Bam Adebayo a little bit more, I was kind of wondering, what do you think? Looking at him, you mentioned eighth grade, but high school. What are some things that you've seen that he's had ever since that high school level, and what are some things that you've seen him kind of develop over the years that he's taken huge strides in?
Well, as I mentioned, I saw the footwork,
Right.
and I saw somebody in the low post make a move uh, because he had great footwork and he had terrific hands, but he didn't know how to put it all together with his back to the basket. That came about over time in high school. He scored more with power and explosiveness, but then when he had to score over a set defender, again, you could see the motion of the footwork in conjunction with the soft touch, and you said to yourself, "Boy, when he gets to the next level, when he gets more coaching with his back to the basket, he could be really productive." And then I saw that elbow jump shot in the high school game where showed me that he had a soft touch, he had a pretty good jumper. Wasn't a great free throw shooter in high school, and I don't know his free throw percentage right now, but I know he struggled a little bit at Kentucky. Kentucky put him in some dribble handoffs, and I think that's where he really started to, emerge as an offensive player, facing the basket, if you will, more and more. And obviously, with the Miami Heat, you could see the development of the catch and shoot 3-point shot. Uh, I would have never thought that out of high school, that he could be a 3-point shooter. So, to his credit and to the Miami Heat's credit, they've expanded his game. And I'll tell you where else he expanded his game is on the defensive end, not just as a post defender, but as a switch defender as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned dribble handoffs and talking about him in Kentucky, and that's pretty much translated because that's something the Miami Heat use more than anybody with Bam Adebayo. Kind of staying on that subject, I was wondering, I know you look at a lot of youth, looking at the guys coming up. It kind of seems as if when I was on a couple of the draft calls, centers that aren't even players like Bam Adebayo, guys that are true bigs and play with their backs to the basket. One name that always came up when they talk about a guy they try to idol is Bam Adebayo. And he's only 23 years old. Do you see young guys right now kind of, instead of going to the post a lot more, maybe trying to become more of a ball handler, passer, perimeter defender? Do you kind of see that? And do you think the league can kind of transition to more of those types of bigs?
Yeah, I see bigs wanting to play facing up more, but they really struggle with that because if you're young as a teenager and you're really big, you're probably still growing, and you don't really have control over your body. I've talked to a lot of bigs that, and from my days of coaching, I know that bigs have a tough time with their coordination level at a young age. And I think some coaches push these kids to be face-up players before they even become low post players. And I say to myself, why not both? Why not be great inside and outside? Utilize your length and your size and your strength inside, and then develop your outside game. The bottom line for all players is you should play to your strengths that you have at the current moment. So when you're in a game, you want to play to what you do best, and then you want to expand your game in practice. And everybody wants to expand their offensive game, Brady. I
Right.
never hear people talk about expanding their defensive game. For example, guys that are post players, they want to be, wing players or small forwards. Have you ever tried to cover a wing player on the other team? It's really difficult to get out there, guard behind the line, chase guys off of screens. So there's a lot more to do than just shoot the ball if you want to expand your game.
Right, and I think that's something the Miami Heat look at in particular. Guys that want to expand their defensive game. So that's kind of why they've gone the route of these past few draft picks. But another kind of exact player on the Miami Heat that I know you've kind of dove into a little bit is Tyler Herro. Um,
Yeah.
Something that the Miami Heat seem that they're trying to do with him is coming out of college, he was kind of labeled as a catch and shoot guy for a little bit, but we know his ability to score off the dribble is where he absolutely strives. I'm wondering, they're kind of trying to transition him into becoming a more of a point guard. I'm wondering if you saw at the high school or college level any kind of flashes of good ball handling and passing abilities, because that seems like the way they're trying to go. There's a chance he could be the starting point guard at the start of the season.
Well, I don't doubt it. I love Tyler Herro in high school. I thought he played with unwavering confidence. I was very high on him in terms of rankings and grading him out because the first thing I saw from him was the confidence. The second thing, I thought he had a terrific middle game. That's where he was best, off the dribble, pulling up from mid range. That's where he made his name, whether it was a long 2-point shot or something, outside the paint, uh, but inside the arc. That's where he really stood out. And he could take them on the baseline, top of the key, and it can go 2 dribbles to the right, 2 dribbles to the left. He had great body control and touch. And then he was a 3-point shooter in high school. But again, I thought he was much more of a mid-range shooter. And he could handle the ball and he could pass the ball. But his mindset in high school was to score the ball. But I see him making the transition because, he plays the game with great self-confidence on the offensive end. And if his mindset and his IQ can develop, I could see him being somewhat of a point guard. But that's not his natural position in my eyes.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm kind of wondering if to expand on that, what do you kind of think is his ceiling? That's kind of a question that always comes up. You see the Devin Booker comparisons, you see all these guys. What do you kind of, if you're projecting forward, do you see his ceiling to be?
I think can be one of the better 2 guards, in the league. I mean, he's already proven that in the playoffs. I think the most important thing for Tyler right now is not to rest on his accomplishments and rest on his giftedness. He's had unbelievable progress. I didn't see this first year in the NBA. I don't think John Calipari saw it as well. But I'm not surprised by it because of that swagger he always played with. And he was once committed to Wisconsin, decommitted, and then said, I want to go play at Kentucky. That
Right.
You got to be careful what you wish for sometimes in recruiting, because in places like Kentucky, you can sink or you can swim. And he did a great job of swimming in Kentucky. So, for him, I think it's just continuing to improve himself, but not trying to prove himself. I think that should be his mindset. Every day I have to improve, but I don't have to prove myself to the media, to the league, to anyone else. But he does have to keep a constant focus on improving himself.
Yeah, you make a very good point. To kind of just to wrap it up a little bit, I just wanted to get your quick opinion on Jimmy Butler's bubble run. I know you saw what he did in the finals against the Lakers, the will he showed when Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic went out. I just want to kind of get your quick opinion on the Miami Heat's kind of bubble run and Jimmy Butler in particular.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, every time I watch Jimmy Butler play, you know what you're going to get. I mean, the effort and the intensity and the passion. I mean, those are adjectives to describe his game, not to be taken lightly by today's player. I hope today's player can see his passion and intensity because he takes on all challenges. He's a star in the league. I know his background. Nobody knew about him in high school. He went to junior college. He was a late blooming prospect. But the thing you never saw with Jimmy Butler until he got to Marquette was probably, the skill level that he started to develop there. And then obviously he played for Tom Thibodeau, who coached me in college back in the 80s. So I thought Thibodeau and Jimmy Butler were a great match because Tibbs is so focused, so intense, and so attention to detail. And Butler took that coaching, and those 2 guys really helped each other. And to watch him, it's an inspiration because it's not just his skill and his talent, but it's more his will.
Yeah, for sure. You sum it up well. Well, Paul, thank you very much for joining me today and talking with me. We'll be in touch soon.
Brady, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.